Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Connors. I want to give you just a breakdown of differential diagnosis. That's what it's called when you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you. So let's just kind of walk through this, how you need to look at yourself, how you should demand that a doctor looks at your symptoms. I know many people are on this course because you're like not getting answers. So these, unfortunately, we live in a day where practice of medicine has changed dramatically, and there's nobody to listen to you. There's nobody to sit down with, and I get that. But this is the way. That's why I put this course together. You need to sit down with yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and start asking yourself these questions. That's what I'm teaching throughout this whole course, is how you should demand either a doctor looks at you or that you look at yourself to figure this out and to be your own doctor here. So normally you got signs and you got symptoms, meaning that you got objective findings and you got subjective findings. I don't feel well. I have headaches. I have a rash. I have swollen joints. You have to start asking yourself questions. That's what a history is. Get a proper history to find out, when did this start? Did it start after I went hunting in the woods and ended up with a possible tick bite? I never did find it. I started when I was, down in Mexico and I got food poisoning. After that, it just seems like my life has been so changed forever. It started when I had my third child, and it just seems like my whole body changed, and I don't know what happened. I've never been able to get things back. And so getting that proper history can be very beneficial to get some possible, initial antigens in an autoimmune disease, initial antigens that sparked gut issues or brain issues or damage or inflammation, sources of what could possibly be the cause to all this. And then doing a proper examination. Now, that's possible for me to do at a distance for people, but that's a lost art. That's not happening anymore. And doctors are spending 5 minutes with the patient. There's no proper examination done. There's no neurological examination. And many times I'm going to refer you to find a functional neurologist that's going to do a proper examination. And then testing. And so many people have come to us and said, I know my doctor has done these labs, but he's never done any of those labs that you're talking about. How are you going to find out things unless you do that testing? You can't. How are you going to find out if I have food sensitivities to cucumbers if I never tested it? There's just no way to know unless you do the test. And that's how you end up getting a diagnosis. This is supposed to be a normal framework for a doctor. You do a history, you do an exam, you do testing, you arrive at a diagnosis in order to formulate a treatment plan. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard, and that's what many people think about. So there's really, from a medical standpoint, 5 steps to a differential diagnosis. You're acquiring data from a history. You're identifying key features. And that's from your history, from your exam, from your labs and other tests that you're doing. And then you're creating a possible representation. There's the possibilities that we're dealing with. Then you adopt a framework on how we're going to deal with this case, and you apply that to the framework of developing a treatment plan. And that's really what we need to do, and that's how you need to think of yourself, and that's why you need to educate yourself. You need to start asking yourself some questions. Do I have an active antigen? That means, do I have a bacterial infection or a viral infection that's causing this? Do I have a flare of a latent viral infection? That is very common in the last few years with COVID. It's sparked up latent infections. Maybe an Epstein-Barr virus that's been silent for years is now activated, and that's the huge piece of my chronic fatigue that I'm dealing with. Do I have damaged barriers, gut barriers, lung barriers, brain-based barriers? Your brain barrier is a huge issue for brain inflammation. If you haven't watched my video on neuroinflammation. I highly recommend that if you're having any brain fog and weird symptoms. Do I have food allergies? Don't just base that on your history. You could have, oh, I don't have any issues with gluten. I can eat gluten, no issues. We run a test and it's through the roof. That's definitely causing inflammation in the brain. So missed food allergies are probably the number one thing that we see that are causing issues and causing inflammation in the brain. Do I have toxicity, not just to heavy metals, but to other things? Do I have toxicity to poisons in my environment, that is causing issues? Do I have a mold toxicity, mycotoxins? That is a hidden thing. That's hugely common. And we have seen people that never, ever remember getting a tick bite ever in their life, but they show positive for Lyme antibodies. So these are key things to look for. And I left out a ton of stuff that you could find through proper testing. But then from that, you're checking, do I have self-antibodies? That means now have these things over time created my immune system to start developing antibodies against my own tissue. That's what's called an autoimmune diseases. And then you have those 3 different phases of autoimmune disease. Maybe it's latent and I don't really have any symptoms from that. Well, you wouldn't even be in this course if you didn't have any symptoms. So nobody's got that. So then secondly, I'm developing symptoms, but I don't really have huge objective findings, meaning swelling in my joint or loss of thyroid tissue or major changes on a blood test because of those self-antibodies. Most people aren't in this course, in that stage. Most people in this course are in stage 3, phase 3 on autoimmune disease. And that's how we need to develop a treatment plan. We kind of talked through that already, but that's where you got to look at where's the rest of the autoimmunity. There's probably other tissues that you have antibodies to. Is it a systemic autoimmunity? We need to find those things out. What are the dietary triggers? Because if you have any antibodies to other things and you keep sparking a reaction, you are going to cause your problem just to continue to spiral downwards. And I don't care how many supplements you take, you're not going to be able to help yourself. So you have to find that out. What are the lifestyle triggers? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you dealing with emotional issues? Are you dealing with work type issues? Are you getting exercise? Are you over exercising? What are the chemical triggers? Are there pollutants that fire a reaction? Most likely because you have some sort of chemical toxicity also. We need to uncover that. Are there antigenic triggers, meaning from positive, like I mentioned, latent Epstein-Barr or some latent chlamydia or something like that keeps firing a reaction? Are there immune barrier issues? Almost everybody in this course has an immune barrier issue. And then what are the degrees of this immune tolerance? This is how we really have to start developing our treatment program, because sometimes you just can't do all this at one time and it's not in your best interest to. So where do we break this down and start developing a treatment plan to start healing? And if I can do one thing to drill into your head, it is a long-term process. This is a lifestyle process. You are never going to be able to make your self-antibodies go away. You have to just learn how to best manage this. And that's going to be different for everybody. 2 people with rheumatoid arthritis are going to have a totally different management style. And that's just the way it is. Everybody is unique and different. That's what this whole course is for. So stay with it. Remember, I'm praying for you. Hang in there. Don't give up.